Bonjour à tout le monde, là, je suis le papa d'Allison. Le plus dur pour nous, ça a été de lire des choses que les gens commentaient et dire sans savoir ce qui se passe dans la vie privée des gens. Là. Les gens qui me connaissent vraiment, là, ils savent très bien que pour moi, Allison, c'est ma vie. Mais ça, il y a seulement que les gens qui me connaissent qui peuvent savoir ça. Aujourd'hui, je suis en incertitude de qu'on trouve ma fille, parce que ça fait déjà 3 semaines qu'elle est partie. Et ma fille jamais aurait fait une chose comme ça, de ne pas donner des nouvelles ni des choses comme ça, c'est impossible. Je sais que c'est impossible. Pour ça, aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de choses qui nous passent dans la tête, et on tient, mais c'est trop dur, on est à la limite d'exploser. Et c'est pas une histoire de légionnaire ou pas légionnaire, non, c'est une histoire de cœur, d'une famille, c'est tout.
Hi guys, and welcome back to a new video. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Lindsay, and today I am going to be talking about the Benitez family and the disappearances of Marie-Josée and Allison. This is another French case. This one happened back in 2013. It is still unsolved to this day. I don't cover a lot of unsolved cases on my channel, but this one felt like a really good video to talk about. And I am trying to get back into a more regular uploading. Been a bit busy at work. I'm trying to work on a new schedule that works for my channel as well. But I have a couple of announcements at the end of my video, so please stay tuned for those. If you haven't already subscribed, I will take this opportunity to ask you to please subscribe if you like this type of video. And don't forget to like and comment below if you have any suggestions for any other videos you would like me to cover. Now, in this video, I will be mentioning suicide. There will also be a brief mention of miscarriage. If these are topics you would rather stay away from, I completely understand. Please bear those topics in mind before continuing this video. And with that being said, I'm just going to dive right in. As I've said, this case actually took place back in 2013 in Perpignan, which is a town in the south of France. This is where the Benitez family lived, and the Benitez family consisted of Francisco, Marie-Josée, and their daughter Allison. Allison was their only daughter. However, Marie-Josée had met Francisco when she was single. She was 28, and she was a single mom of 4, so they met when she had already had 4 different children, I believe with different partners, and they spent quite a few years together before finally getting married in 2006. Allison was born on May 24th, 1994, and she grew up to become a stunning girl / woman. She was a beautiful girl. She was hoping to become a hairdresser and was actually training to become one, and she would actually spend most of her free time practicing and rehearsing and preparing for a beauty contest that was happening in August of 2013. She was hoping to become Miss Languedoc-Roussillon, and Languedoc-Roussillon is a region in France, and in order to become Miss France or to compete to become Miss France, you would have to win the regional beauty contest. So that was her ultimate goal. She was 19, absolutely stunning, and she was so excited for this beauty competition. She really stood a fair chance. I mean, she was honestly gorgeous, but she was more than that, obviously. She was such a kind and nice person. She was one of those people who was always smiling, always laughing. She was the life of the party. She was always there for you. If you had anything to celebrate, you would want Allison with you to celebrate. And all of the other girls competing in that competition really liked Allison. She was actually competing with one of her close friends, Norma, and they would spend a lot of time getting makeup on, trying on dresses, taking pictures, just really throwing themselves into these preparations, and she never let the competition get in the way of their friendship. It was never like that. They would support each other. She was just that type of person, and she was actually so interested, or she was so invested in this competition that she had temporarily quit her job as a hairdresser. She had put that on pause for the summer so she could really prepare herself for this competition. Of course, Allison's friends and family were all incredibly supportive of her. To them, she had already won. I guess to all of them, she already felt like the winner. Francisco, her father, was one of her biggest supporters. He would show up for rehearsals, he would drop her off and pick her up from rehearsals, and he was always there for her, cheering on her. She was his entire world. He was absolutely obsessed with his daughter. She was his only daughter, actually, and he really loved her so much. Francisco was actually born on December 13th of 1963 in the south of Spain. He grew up in quite a strict household, and he eventually joined the Spanish Foreign Legion at the age of 23 before moving to France to join the Foreign Legion there. This is where he ended up meeting Marie-Josée, and because of his job, they would have to travel quite a lot. So they would have to move quite a lot. So they've lived in quite a few different cities, in quite a few different countries, which meant that it was a bit hard for Allison to make long-term friends, and she ended up becoming very, very close to her mother because, of course, wherever they would move, her mother would be there, and they became so close. They were best friends. They would tell each other everything. They loved each other so much, and even if Allison went to a party, she would be texting her mom right away to say, "I miss you," or to let her know how the evening's going. That's how close they were. I guess all in all, what I would say from the Benitez family is that both parents loved Allison so much, and she had a lot of love for both of her parents. And during the summer of 2013, while she was preparing for this competition, everything seemed to be going perfectly fine. On July 14th, Allison was in the middle of attending rehearsals for the competition, and she had actually been preparing with the other contestants on that day for the competition that was a month away. So it was coming up quite quickly, and they would usually meet up every week, sometimes multiple times a week. If you're not really familiar with beauty contests, which I'm absolutely not, but from what I've read, the girls actually spend quite a lot of time together doing activities, jet skiing, going for lunches, literally spending a lot of time together to get to know each other and become friends, because as much as it's a competition, the whole point is to create friendships and support each other and work together. And obviously the whole show will go a lot better if everyone is getting along and know each other quite well. So on July 14th was another one of these rehearsals. Allison was about to be picked up by her father. Francisco showed up to give her a lift back home. However, the next day, she never made it to the rehearsal in the evening. They were set to meet up at around 7:30 p.m., and the organizer realized that Allison was running late, which was incredibly out of character. Allison never turned up late for these meetings. She had literally quit her job to focus on this, so it's not like she really had any other plans getting in the way, and she never turned up late. However, she never turned up at all, which really started worrying the contestants and the organizer of the event. After an entire day without any news from Allison, they grew so concerned that they asked her best friend, Alexandre Durand, to stop by her house, her apartment, to check in on her, to see what was going on and why she wasn't getting in touch with anyone. And he did drop by. He rang the doorbell, but her father answered at the window. It was like one of those little balcony windows. And when he answered, he was actually covered in sweat, or maybe just out of the shower. He was very, very wet. And that's something that stood out to Alexandre when he rang the doorbell. However, he asked for news about Allison, and her father said, "Oh, don't worry, Allison's fine. She's with her mother in Toulouse," and they turned their phones off, so don't worry about it. And although it is very odd for any of them to turn their phones off, he had no reason to believe that anything was wrong, and obviously he had no reason to believe that the girls were in any trouble. Now, to be fair, Marie-Josée had texted her older daughter, Lydia. This was one of the kids she had before meeting Francisco. She had texted her daughter, Lydia, on the 14th, and the text read, "I've made a difficult decision, but it's better this way. I'm going to Toulouse with Allison. I love you. Call Dad." And seemingly out of nowhere, they had taken off and left for Toulouse, just like that. Now, although the mother had technically announced their departure by text, friends and family started panicking because both of the phones were switched off and they couldn't get a hold of them. This felt very strange. Why would any of them ever do that? And it was very odd that Allison was no longer posting on social media. She used to spend her entire time posting on Facebook, on Twitter, probably on Instagram as well. I'm pretty sure Instagram was already big back then. And there was nothing on any of her socials. It was very strange. All of them expected the girls to come back any day, just after a few days. However, Allison never returned for any of the rehearsals. And this was the biggest red flag because this competition was her life. That was literally her biggest dream at the moment. At that time in her life, she wanted to win this competition and then win the competition to become Miss France. The only person who never seemed fazed by this sudden change or trip was Francisco, who, as I said, explained to Allison's best friend that the girls are fine. They just went to Toulouse for a couple of days. He was very happy with the content of the text message, even though technically the text was concerning in the sense that, she's made a difficult decision to just leave. I don't know why he would be happy with that, but he was happy with the explanation and he thought they were going to come back after a few days. However, after 8 entire days, the girls still hadn't come back home and he finally went to the police with Lydia to report them missing. Police, unfortunately, weren't very concerned because both of them were adults. So, technically they had announced their departure by text. This wasn't a suspicious disappearance and they didn't really look into it right away. However, 3 days later, on July 25th, police finally launched an investigation into the missing duo. When police spoke to the father, he informed them that he and his wife had an argument on the day she left. And it turned out that their marriage wasn't going as well as people thought on the outside. They would fight quite a lot. Marie-Josée had often left the house for days at a time. They would get into an argument, she would leave for a couple of days, and then she would always come back. And that's what he told police. He said, I think this is just another one of those situations. She's upset, we had an argument, she'll be back. Although it had been 8 days. And he actually stayed less than 15 minutes in the police station, with that interview. It was a very, very quick interview. He basically just said, this is what happened on that day. She'll probably be back, right? She'll turn up, or they'll turn up. And he told them what he knew, what had happened. And the investigators found it so odd that this time she would drag her daughter along. Her daughter, who's an adult, She had never done that before. They had never left together. And by digging a little bit further, police started figuring out just how rocky the relationship was. While police start looking into these disappearances, friends and family started printing missing posters, getting the media involved, trying to draw some attention to these disappearances. They wanted to get the help from the news to basically share what the girls looked like and an attempt to get more information from possible witnesses, especially in Toulouse where they allegedly went. But again, Francisco still didn't feel quite alarmed. On July 30th, their disappearances were finally broadcast on TV and police were asking for any potential witnesses to come forward with information. And that's when the entire town and neighboring towns started helping out. Her best friend, Alexandre, started posting on social media to bring awareness to these disappearances, and this really spread like wildfire throughout the entire country. So for that entire summer, that's all people were talking about. Sadly, Marie-José's brother Eric found out by watching TV. He had no idea that his sister had left the house with his niece. He had no idea that either of them was missing, and he found out by watching the news that night. So he phoned his brother-in-law, Francisco, and he asked what the hell was going on. What do you mean they're gone? Why wouldn't you tell us? Because he hadn't told anyone on her side of the family. Of course, Francisco explained that they had gotten into an argument and that she had left, but that they would be back. However, by then, they had already gone missing for 2 weeks. He claimed he didn't want the family to panic by informing them of these disappearances because initially he didn't believe they had disappeared. He thought they had just left voluntarily. And again, Marie-Josée would always come back after a few days, but this time she was gone longer than usual, and this time she had taken Allison with her. None of the contestants, or even none of Allison's friends, believed that she would ever give up on that competition. She would have continued to attend rehearsals no matter what her parents' relationship was. You know, she would never have given that up. She was so close to the competition. She was a very strong contestant, so she wouldn't have given that up. Nobody believed that she would ever give that up. And her father said that Allison would often go to Toulouse. However, the only reason she would ever go to Toulouse was for work, if her boss sent her there, but obviously he hadn't recently sent her there because she wasn't actually working at the time. She was preparing for the contest. So it's not like she had ever gone there for fun. It would always be for work. And it's not like the mother ever really went to Toulouse anyway. So it was a bit of a strange destination. It's not like they had family or friends there. It was just a bit odd that they would just head off to Toulouse. And if you're just upset and you want to leave, why would you announce exactly where you're going if you just need to calm down and blow off some steam? Once police discovered that both of the girls' phones had been switched off and that they were not on social media anymore and that there was zero activity on any of their bank accounts, they grew very concerned. They sent 10 police officers to search the family home for 5 hours. They searched for 5 hours and they discovered Marie-Josée and Allison's passports. Again, if you want to start fresh and go to a new city or even, I don't know, run away for a bit, when you bring your most important paperwork, such as a passport, especially if you're not really going to come back straight away, what's going on? Additionally, neither of them knew how to drive. They didn't have a driver's license, so how long could you really disappear for without passports or driver's license? Are you really just laying low in another town? At the beginning of August, Francisco's brother-in-law, Eric, drove to Perpignan to offer his support. He wanted to help his brother-in-law, who was obviously going through a rough time now. The girls hadn't come back, and he was feeling more and more harassed by the press. He was really struggling with the pressure, with the rumors, with the gossip, and the speculation. He was actually very well respected in the area, mainly because of his job, but also because of his character. Literally all of his peers, colleagues, anyone who's worked with him, all of his friends only have good things to say about him. He literally has consistently been described as a great guy. That's the first thing people say about Francisco. And that was very hard for him to get all this backlash from the public because he couldn't explain where his wife and daughter were, and people were starting to believe he was involved. And I've never been in that situation, and I don't think it's an easy one to be in if the media is turning on you and now every stranger in your country has an opinion on your personal life. That must be incredibly hard. So he would cry quite a lot. And on August 4th, Eric left the house at around 6 p.m. and he told him that he would be back the next morning to, again, hang out with him, offer his support. Unfortunately, he did not realize that that would be the last time he spoke to Francisco. A neighbor actually saw Francisco that night. He left his flat around 11 p.m. in his uniform. So he was a legionnaire and he was all dressed up, drove to his barracks, and the following morning, a fellow legionnaire discovered him hanging from one of the buildings. He had hanged himself and covered his face with a black cloth. His suicide became front page news. People started speculating on what had happened. Obviously, everybody had an opinion, and it was kind of like two sides of opinions. People who believed that he committed suicide because he couldn't deal with the guilt of what he had done to Allison and Marie-Josée, or the people who believed that the pressure from the media was so hard on him that he couldn't handle it anymore, and that's why he committed suicide. And to be fair, we really don't know what kind of mental state he was in before this ever happened. We have no idea. He could have already been in a really poor mental state before this happened, and the media scrutiny was just too much, and that's why he committed suicide. I mean, I can only imagine having to deal with your wife and your daughter missing, and then having the entire country accuse you of being responsible for it. I can see how that would push someone to their limit. Hours before committing suicide, though, he had Lydia help him film a video that he sent to a I don't know if it was a newspaper or to I don't remember if it was a newspaper or like a news channel that he sent the video. Oh, if it's a video, I guess it would be a news channel. So he sent the video to some sort of news channel, news outlet to publish. And it's quite sinister that she helped him film this video, not knowing that hours later he would be committing suicide. But I will insert the video with his message. I'll add subtitles for you. He's got quite a strong Spanish accent, but obviously I don't expect you to understand French. I'll put the subtitles so you can see what he's saying.
Bonjour à tout le monde, là, je suis le papa d'Allison. Le plus dur pour nous, ça a été de lire des choses que les gens commentaient et dire sans savoir ce qui se passe dans la vie privée des gens. Là. Les gens qui me connaissent vraiment, là, ils savent très bien que pour moi, Allison, c'est ma vie. Mais ça, il y a seulement que les gens qui me connaissent qui peuvent savoir ça. Aujourd'hui, je suis en incertitude de qu'on trouve ma fille, parce que ça fait déjà 3 semaines qu'elle est partie. Et ma fille jamais aurait fait une chose comme ça, de pas donner des nouvelles ni des choses comme ça, c'est impossible. Je sais que c'est impossible. Pour ça, aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de choses qui nous passent dans la tête, et on tient, mais c'est trop dur, on est à la limite d'exploser. Et c'est pas une histoire de légionnaire ou pas légionnaire, non, c'est une histoire de cœur, d'une famille, c'est tout.
Now, he's very obviously distressed and upset in the video. I found it very, very odd that he only talked about his daughter. His daughter was everything to him, and everyone knew that, but he highlighted that his daughter would never just disappear. She would always give news. She would never just disappear like that, you know, without any information or without sharing where she was. But I did find it so odd that he would never mention his wife. She was also missing, and it's like she was never mentioned in the video. Additionally, he committed suicide the day before he was supposed to be interrogated by police in depth. So it's really hard to tell if that had any impact on his decision to commit suicide. Maybe it did, maybe not for the reasons most of us speculate. But he did leave a letter to his superiors to explain why he made the decision to end his life. And he said that the hardest part was listening to people's opinion on the case without knowing him as a person or knowing anything about his private family life. He said, "I ask you to please not judge me. I am at the end of my rope. Remember me as the Benitez you used to know." He would often go by his last name. Now, one thing was clear though, if the girls had chosen to leave Perpignan and start fresh in Toulouse or anywhere else in France, they would have found out about his suicide, and they definitely would have come forward after that. Nobody believes that they would still remain quiet and on the run without addressing the fact that their husband/father had committed suicide. When it came to their family dynamic, police or investigators quickly found out that the perfect image they were projecting to friends and family was just one huge lie. Francisco hadn't been living at home for about 8 months before both of them went missing, and as I've said, he and Marie-Josée used to argue quite a lot, and they were actually on the verge of a divorce. A few days later, on August 11th, the beauty contest took place, and as I think quite a few people expected, Allison never turned up, she never showed up, and this was such a big dream of hers, so, you know, it's hard to believe she would voluntarily give that up. But all of the contestants were very saddened by her absence, and they showed support and solidarity by wearing green bracelets, most likely because as part of the competition, you probably would have to wear something quite small, and that didn't distract from the actual contest, but they really did miss her. Everybody loved her, and they were really hoping that she would appear even last minute or even in the crowd, like that she would just turn up, because she couldn't stay away from this competition, even if she was no longer competing. Now, since Marie-Josée and Allison were still missing and Francisco had committed suicide, police started looking into his past, and they also started interrogating some of his fellow legionnaires. The motto of the French Legion, or maybe most legions, I'm assuming, is honor and loyalty. A lot of people believe that as part of the loyalty, there's also the hush-hush part, which means that anytime a fellow Legionnaire is involved, you would defend them or maybe help cover up. That's what a lot of people believe. It's just one of those situations where it's like one big family and they got each other's back and they're very, very close. It's a very tight-knit type of position to be in. So I think a lot of people believe that no matter what the Legionnaires came forward and said, they would probably be basically trying to defend another Legionnaire, trying to defend their honor and their memory. When speaking to one of the Legionnaires, police discovered that shortly after the girls went missing, on July 19th, Francisco brought his freezer to the barracks so that he could clean it out, as one does when you have a huge freezer. And this was a big, big freezer, literally like the size of an actual fridge. This wasn't just like a little unit you could just carry like under your arm. This was a massive freezer that he brought all the way to the barracks so he could power wash it, because he did not have the facilities at home. Because again, why would you ever need to like clean your freezer with such intensity? However, police found that out and were very interested in this freezer, so they searched the freezer. They found traces of DNA that belonged to Marie-Josée and Allison, and he had told Legionnaires that he had brought the freezer back to the barracks because they had the proper tools to help him clean it, and he told them that the blood you could see inside the freezer was from venison. Now, police did realize that whatever DNA they found in the freezer could have actually come from any of the girls cutting themselves and then using the freezer. It wasn't evidence enough. So what they did was they did a deep search of the freezer and found traces of DNA in nooks and crannies that no one would ever have access to by just casually using a freezer. Police did end up finding traces of their DNA in some of the most remote parts of the freezer, which was looking really bad for Francisco, although he had already committed suicide. He had also been seen by colleagues washing some clothes at the barracks. Again, very strange because he has his own house. Police searched the washing machines at the barracks and they found more traces of blood that belonged to Marie-Josée and Allison. And after this discovery, police returned to the Benitez household to carry out a full forensic search. The first time they went to search the house, he had acted quite nervous about them going into the basement/garage. But this time they had access to the full house to do a deep search, a forensic search. And by using luminol, they discovered bloodstains on the floor, around the foot of the bed, throughout the rest of the house, but mainly in the garage. Another interesting fact was that in the 3 weeks after the girls had gone missing, his car traveled over 5,000 kilometers, which is roughly the distance between London and Montreal. Where was he going? Why was he driving so far or so much? In 3 weeks, that's incredibly ambitious. That's a lot of driving. Investigators decided to trace his phone location during that period of time to see where he had gone, and it showed that he would often frequent military terrains that only the military had access to. And these are incredibly vast segments of land, like just huge areas of land, and it would be nearly impossible to fully search. Police did try searching for bodies in those places, but again, they were so vast that they came up empty-handed. They mostly focused on Port-le-Cat, which is an area about 30 minutes away from Perpignan. And that's where his phone had been located multiple times, but very late in the day, so it would be way after work hours. He would have no reason to be there because it wasn't for work. It turned out that although he claimed not having seen any of the girls after they left on July 14th, his phone and Marie-José's phone both signaled at the same time and at the same spot in Port-le-Cat. So I'm assuming her phone had been switched back on, maybe temporarily. I'm not sure, but both phones signaled at the same spot at the same time after they had both gone to Toulouse. Police searched and searched. Unfortunately, they never found any traces of the girls, even after looking through the wastewater treatment plant that was located in Port-le-Cat. And this was a very interesting point of research or point of search because investigators speculated that Francisco could have left the bodies inside the tank that collects the wastewater, and it's treated with lye, I believe, caustic soda. I don't know if that translates to lie, but it would basically easily dissolve bodies. Because of the size of the tank and because of the fact that it's very difficult to scan from the outside and it would be near impossible to empty to look into it and be searched because you can't just get rid of it, whatever's in it, you'd have to put it in another huge tank. So logistically, it was impossible to search it. Police never managed to find out if any traces of Marie-Josée or Allison could be found inside that tank. Now, when it came to his colleagues and peers, I mean, again, honor and loyalty, they were very quick to defend him. The thing with Francisco is that he had such an impeccable appearance. He had quite a presence amongst his peers. He was quite high ranked. He was very respected in his job, but also just in everyday life. And they were very offended or upset when the public started attacking him, even though they didn't know anything about his personal life. You know, they hated that strangers would judge him based on what they saw on TV, not knowing what his real life was like. However, it turned out that many of them didn't know what his personal life was like at all. The very, very well-respected Legionnaire was actually quite a ladies' man. By the time July 2013 rolled around, Marie-Josée and Francisco, as I've said, were on the verge of a divorce. They were not getting along. They were arguing quite a lot, and Francisco would often travel to Barcelona for work. He would travel back and forth and stay in Barcelona for a couple of days. A couple months prior, he had met a woman there named Maria-Teresa. She was actually a married woman. She had 2 children, and they started off as friends. They got along really well, and it quickly turned into an affair, and he would often go back to Barcelona for work, but mostly to hang out with Maria-Teresa as well. Aside from Maria-Teresa, he was actually known to have had multiple affairs in the months leading up to his wife and daughter missing. And what's so strange, I mean, not strange, but what's so ironic to me is that some of the affairs were with other women in the Legion. When the motto is honor and loyalty, the irony is not lost on me. However, Allison finally realized what was going on. She had gone through her father's phone to just see for herself who these women were and get confirmation that he was cheating on her mother. Her mother was also aware that he was going elsewhere, and Allison was actually really upset about it. She was so disappointed in her dad for doing that because it kind of shattered the image she had of him, and she hated to see her mom suffer. And she fully intended on confronting some of the women. She wanted to meet up with them and talk to them. Maybe not to make them stop, but just to explain that he's a married man and you're also married. What are you doing? Why would you do this? I'm not sure what her goal was, but she wanted to confront them. On July 12th, 2 days before the disappearances, he was having dinner with Maria-Teresa in Barcelona. He was also out with some friends. And as I've said, his character was quite well hidden. His true character was quite well hidden. Nobody suspected any trouble in their marriage. They never knew he was cheating on his wife with other women. However, when watching TV, that's when they realized that he had been having an affair with Maria-Teresa, and she actually went to the press to let them know that she had slept over on July 19th in the bed he used to share with his now missing wife. She was also the last person to speak to him before he committed suicide. They had a phone conversation the night before. He was very, very upset, mostly complaining about everything that was going on in his life, and she was just trying to keep his spirits up. But I do find it particularly gross that he had her sleep over in his house when his wife was missing, just a couple of, 5 days later. Anyway, his suicide made the news, and Simon de Oliveira's family reached out to police once they found out that Francisco had committed suicide. He actually used to have a relationship with their daughter back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Even back then, he had been living a double life. One with Marie-Josée and Allison, and one with Simone, who was also a mother of 4. She had recently gotten divorced. She was working at a bar that often served Legionnaires, and that's where they met. He met her at a bar, which is also where he had met Marie-Josée. So history repeated itself. She was originally from Brazil, and she is described by her siblings and friends as a really, really kind woman who always looked after herself. She always looked so good. She always made an effort to look impeccable all of the time. She was really nice. She was a great mother. She loved her kids, and she had no trouble making friends. She was literally liked by everyone. She was such a nice person, and she was so in love with Francisco, and he had told her that he was no longer with Marie-Josée, that they had separated, but obviously he was still with her, and they got married in 2006, but they already had Allison. Now, Simone was aware of Allison, and Francisco even brought Allison over to play with Simone's children. That's appropriate. Of course, Allison was too young to realize what was going on, and as far as Simone was concerned, she was the only one in his life, and he was the stepdad to her children now. She actually introduced him to her family, and I know a lot of people are always baffled to find out about people who live a double life, and like, how could you not know that they have another family in another town? But the towns were quite far apart. She lived in Nîmes, so it was quite easy to separate the two, although he did drag his daughter into it by making her play with Simone's children. But overall, Simone had no reason to believe that he was still with Marie-Josée. So, a whole town away, it was pretty easy for him to just act like a different person. At the time, Marie-Josée was actually aware of what had been going on. She was very upset about it. And it's only when Marie-Josée answered the phone instead of Francisco that Simone realized that they were still together. And obviously she was very upset about it. I don't know if she was upset at Marie-Josée or just at the situation, but basically that pretty much cleared things up for Simone. And Marie-Josée was like, look, we're together. We have a daughter. Please go away. And Simone was like, what are you talking about? We're together. He's the stepdad to my kids. But obviously she was very upset about it. I can understand. And she decided that she was going to break up with Francisco and move on with her life. On November 24th, 2004, she was meant to meet up with him to have a chat. She was going to meet up with him, discuss what had been going on, and basically just ditch him because she couldn't keep seeing him. He was obviously still with Marie-Josée and he had this daughter with her. Unfortunately, she went missing that very day and her disappearance never got solved. Prior to going missing, she had actually been in the hospital for a couple of days, and one of her sisters told police that she believed Simone was pregnant and that she had ended up in the hospital after trying to end her life, or possibly because she had had a miscarriage. No one knows for sure why she was in the hospital, but that's just one of her sister's theories. But she did believe that Simone was pregnant. Obviously, it would have been by Francisco, which probably would have complicated the entire affair. On the 24th, she left her children with her brother. They were living together at the time, so she went back home from the hospital, told her brother to look after her kids, told him that she was going to meet up with Francisco, and she was never seen again. Her disappearance was very, very suspicious because she would never have left her children behind just like that. She had been actually really excited about Christmas. She had already started decorating the house or the flat, and there's no way she would have left her 4 kids behind. When she asked her brother to look after them, it was temporary. It was just because she had to go speak to Francisco and she would have been back that day. Surely she wouldn't just up and leave without a trace, just like that. Just be like, you know what, I'm done, and then just start a whole new life elsewhere. It just didn't make sense. She had actually sent a text before going missing. Does that sound familiar? She had texted Francisco. Essentially, she was breaking up with him and telling him that she never wanted to hear from him again and that she was leaving, as in leaving her house. That's what the text basically explained, is that I'm out, I'm gone, I'm leaving. And that's what's so strange, because if you're living with the person and breaking up with them, I can understand leaving that house because you don't want to be with them anymore. But this was her place. That's where she lived with her kids. If she's breaking up with some guy who lives in a different city, why would she leave her own flat? That makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, and she wouldn't leave her kids behind. So once her family reached out to police after finding out about Francisco's suicide and also the disappearances with his wife and daughter, Police quickly started seeing the similarities between Simon's disappearance and Marie-Josée and Allison's disappearances. At the time, Francisco had been interrogated by police just to see what had gone on with Simone, because obviously he was supposed to meet up with her. She was going to break up with him. He was a prime suspect, but police never involved him, and he basically said he had nothing to do with it. She probably just left like that, but we're no longer together. And for whatever reason, police just dropped it. Now, one of the reasons police actually dropped it was because she was occasionally a sex worker, and you know how police or even the public react when they find out that someone's been a sex worker. They either deserve the crimes that are coming their way, or maybe she had met a dangerous person while working nights. People are very quick to judge and dismiss sex workers, especially back in 2004. It was probably even worse than it is now. So that was one of the reasons why police didn't look into it further. They're like, you know what? She either went back to Brazil, leaving her 4 kids behind, as one does, or you know what? She met the wrong guy. As if that's a good enough excuse to stop looking into this. That drives me wild. But anyway, they no longer looked into Francisco as a suspect, and they literally had no other leads. So 3 years later, the case was closed and unsolved. To this day, we still do not know what happened on July 14th or the days after July 14th. Many people believe he is involved. A lot of people believe that it could have been a fight that escalated and got out of hand and ended up in an accidental murder. Quite a few people believe that that's a plausible theory. Allison was aware of his mistresses. She would have told her mom about it because they discussed everything. She might have confronted her father because she was really upset. He really was obsessed with Allison. He really did love his daughter. So it's just a tricky situation to suss out without any evidence. Obviously, we'll never know what actually happened. But we have never heard again from Simone, Marie-Josée, or Allison. I hope one day we'll be able to get some answers. I personally do not feel hopeful about this. I don't believe any of them are still alive, but of course there's no way to know for sure. That's just my personal theory or opinion. I also want to point out that I have spoken about Simone and Allison, but there wasn't much information about Marie-Josée, the mother, which is such a shame. I wish I could say more about her, but there really wasn't much information I could find about her as a person. All I know is that she was a terrific mother. She loved Allison so much, and Allison loved her just as much as her mother did. And she seemed to have been stuck in a very sad marriage. Quite a few people believed that Francisco had issues dealing with his women leaving him, and that he would maybe murder them so that if he couldn't have them, no one else would. Maybe he's innocent. We have no idea. So, you know, after all of his friends were very quick to say that he was an irreproachable guy, a great guy, even though they had no idea he was living a double or triple life with other women, other families. So, you know, he was very deceiving that way, but that doesn't mean he committed any murders. That doesn't mean he's actually behind the disappearances. There's only circumstantial evidence that looks bad, but he's no longer there to defend it, so that's very tricky. So what are your thoughts on this case? Let me know down below. I hate unsolved cases so much. That's why I don't cover that many, but I genuinely hope we get an update at some point. But let me know down below what your thoughts are. Let me know if there are any other cases you would like me to cover. I have finally gotten a P.O. box. I will link it down in the description box, or I'll pin it down below. If anyone, I guess, is interested in that, I figured I would let you guys know. And also, I am so close to 1,000 subscribers. I can taste it. It's actually very exciting because I started this channel 3 years ago? I don't remember. I started this channel quite a while ago, and I don't know. I guess I never actually believed I could reach 1,000, but that's coming up really soon, which I'm so excited about. And I will be doing a giveaway. So if you've made it this far, then thank you. And also stay tuned, because in the next video, I will most likely be having a giveaway. So stay tuned for that. I hope you're all doing well. I will start posting more regularly as soon as I get a grip on my life, which actually might not be so soon. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.